Opening on September 25, 2025, news broke that shook the Christian world. Voddie Baucham Jr. passed outer Hilgent father Pat just 56 years old. His death came suddenly after what was described as an emergency medical incident for some. The name Voddie Baucham represents a trusted voice in the pulpit, someone who spoke boldly about faith, family, and truth. For others, his writings and sermons were controversial, challenging the cultural conversations of our day. But no matter what side of that spectrum you fall on, his passing leaves a void and a legacy worth exploring. Today, we're going to walk through the story of Voddie Baucham's life. From his beginnings in Los Angeles to his international ministry in Africa to his final days in Florida, this is the story of a man whose convictions shaped thousands of lives, stirred debate across the Christian world, and left a mark that will not be easily erased. Early life. Voddie Baucham was born on March 11, 1969, in Los Angeles, California. He was raised primarily by his mother, who worked hard to provide stability for her family. His early years weren't the polished environment of seminaries and pulpits. Instead, he grew up in a rougher setting, surrounded by the challenges of single-parent life in the city. But those humble beginnings would shape him. He often spoke of his mother's influence, her persistence in raising him with discipline, and her push for him to value education. Though not raised in a deeply Christian household, those early lessons planted seeds that would later grow into his conviction about the role of parents in shaping children's faith. As he entered college, something changed. He encountered the message of Christ in a personal way. The young man from Los Angeles, who hadn't grown up steeped in church life, was drawn into the faith that would define his career and calling. Education on training. Baucham pursued theology with intensity. He studied Christianity and sociology at Houston Baptist University, earning his bachelor's degree. From there, he advanced into seminary life, studying at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary and later Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. He pushed himself further still, completing additional studies at Oxford, in England. This combination of rigorous education and personal conviction gave him both credibility and confidence. He was never shy in debates, never hesitant to speak plainly, and often drew on both scripture and scholarship to make his case. Rise in ministry by the late 1990s and early 2000s. Voddie Baucham had become known as a preacher with a distinctive voice. His style was expository, unpacking scripture verse by verse, but also deeply passionate. He didn't just teach. Et Shalan Jedibibwe, the ever-loving truth defended the Christian faith in an age of skepticism. Family-driven faith became a flagship work, urging parents to take discipleship into their own hands and not outsource it to churches or schools. Baucham's message was clear. Faith begins in the home, and fathers in particular must lead the way. At home, he lived what he preached. He married his wife, Bridget, and together they raised 9 children. Their large family became a picture of the family-driven model he advocated, and he often drew from his own household experiences in sermons and lectures. International work. In 2015, Baucham made a surprising move. He accepted a call to Zambia, where he served as Dean of Theology at the African Christian University in Lusaka. For many American pastors, an overseas post would have seemed like a step away from influence. But for Baucham mit Karling, there, he poured himself into training young pastors, helping to build a foundation of theological education for the next generation of African church leaders. His presence in Zambia showed a side of him that was quieter, less about headlines, more about discipleship. And yet, his sermons and writings from that season continued to circulate worldwide, keeping him in the conversation back home. Health struggles in 2021, everything changed. Baucham suffered a severe heart failure. Doctors discovered multiple blockages. His condition was critical. At one point, he said he was within an hour of death before being airlifted to the United States for emergency care. He underwent a quadruple bypass and endured multiple hospitalizations. For months, his life hung in the balance. Many prayed for him, and he often gave updates about his recovery. These experiences gave his preaching a new weight. He spoke as a man who had stared death in the face and been given a second chance. Still, the health concerns never fully went away. His heart was fragile, and every public appearance carried with it the reminder that he was living on borrowed time. Controversy and influence. Beyond his health, Baucham became even more widely known for his cultural commentary. His 2021 book, Fault Lines, critiqued the rise of social justice movements within the church, particularly critical race theory. Supporters praised him as a courageous truth-teller, willing to stand against cultural trends. Critics accused him of oversimplification and division. This was not new territory for Baucham. He had always been willing to confront difficult issues: race, politics, education, and culture. He was a friend to conservative leaders like Charlie Kirk, and was often invited to conferences where his words drew both applause and controversy. What cannot be denied is that he made people think. He was not a quiet pastor staying in safe lanes. He believed truth mattered too much to water down, and he carried that belief into every sermon and page. Final years after years in Africa, Baucham returned to the U.S. to become one of the founding faculty members of Founders Seminary in Florida. Even while dealing with ongoing health struggles, he continued teaching, preaching, and mentoring. Then, on September 25, 2025, he suffered what was described as an emergency medical incident. Despite efforts, et passé away. Founders Ministries announced his death, asking for prayers for his wife Bridget, their children, and their grandchildren. The news rippled quickly through churches, seminaries, and social media. For many, the loss felt sudden, even though his health struggles had been public for years. Legacy and reflection. So what do we make of Voddie Baucham's life? For his supporters, he was a warrior for biblical truth, a defender of the family, a man who never compromised. His books and sermons will continue to disciple generations. His work in Africa will continue through pastors he trained. His family, wife, children, and grandchildren will carry forward the faith he lived out. For his critics, he was polarizing, sometimes harsh, sometimes dismissive of perspectives he disagreed with. And yet, even critics often admitted you couldn't ignore him. He made you wrestle with the issues. At the end of the day, Voddie Baucham's story is a reminder that conviction has a cost. It wins friends and enemies. It inspires some and offends others. But conviction, lived out with consistency, leaves a legacy. Closing, from his childhood in Los Angeles to the classrooms of Oxford to pulpits across America and Seminary Zambia, Voddie Baucham Historie, Transformation, Resilience, and Boldness. He lived through health crises, preached through controversies, and stayed faithful to what he believed until the very end. As we remember him, we ask ourselves, what will our own legacy be? Will we stand boldly for what we believe? Will we live in such a way that when we are gone, people will not only remember our words, but also the conviction behind them? Thank you for watching. If you've ever been impacted by Voddie Baucham, maybe through a sermon, a book, or even just a quote, drop a comment below. Let's remember him not only for the controversies he stirred, but for the conversations he started. Rest in peace, Voddie Baucham. Your work lives on,